Hey, what's up guys? Garden here, coming to you guys with a deck profile today on my Narukami deck for Standard. Yeah, we have Vermillion, he is back, and yeah, alongside Ezel as well, funnily enough, in the same set. So set 11 came out a little bit ago, and we also have set 12 coming out very soon, which surprised me. But yeah, Vermillion's actually a pretty fun deck. It surprised me when I played this past weekend. And yeah, without further ado, let's get into the deck, shall we? So for the ride line, we of course have the classic Spark Kid Dragoon, my personal favorite for the starter. So glad they went for it. It's also got Dragoon in the name, so I guess it kind of goes in line with the rest of the ride line. Red River Dragoon. So when we're riding on top of this, we get to add the order card from our deck to our hand, which is the Eternal Thunderbolt, which is pretty cool. But we'll go more into that when we get to it. And then we also have the Grade 2, which is the Thunderstorm Dragoon. Pretty cool skill, actually. So when we're riding the Grade 3 on top of him, we search our deck, the top 7 cards of the deck for a Narukami card, or we add the order card from them to our hand. And yeah, so you can either get the order, you can get a Narukami piece. Also, funnily enough, if you haven't seen a Persona ride yet, you could add a copy of Vermilion to your hand for a Persona ride, which is kind of sick. So yeah, pretty solid ride line, and Vermilion himself, pretty cool card, which we'll go over right now, because of course in the main deck, we are playing 3 extra copies of him for the Persona ride, so yeah. So Vermilion's pretty cool. Basically, you can counterblast to choose 2 of your opponent's rear guard circles, and then when he's attacking, he attacks the Vanguard as well as those 2 circles and the units that are on them. So it's kind of like the old one, how it used to attack the front row, but this time he can attack any rear guards, which is kind of nice. You also get to allocate 2 lots of 5k to Narukami units that you control. So you could give 5k to Vermilion himself and then 5k to another rear, or just make 2 of your Narukami rear guards bigger, and then that's a problem. So pretty nice. Gives the deck a bit more, fighting power there in terms of pressure. But it does have one more skill in that at the end of the battle that it attacks, if you played a normal order this turn, which you will be doing a lot, and your opponent's at 4 or less damage, you can discard a card from your hand to deal a damage to your opponent's Vanguard. So pretty cool. So it allows you to push them on damage, get them to a lethal threshold very early, and hopefully the amount of power that you accumulate helps you get there and apply lethal. So pretty sick. And with Vermilion, of course, we have to discuss his order card, which is the 3 copies of Eternal Thunderbolt. So pretty peculiar order card. So with this one, you can play it normally, of course, but it also allows you to play it from the drop zone by then binding it afterwards. So you basically get 2 activations out of 1 copy of this, which is kind of sick. It also makes sense to play 3 of it in that sense, because I feel like 4 is just a bit too many. Also, you can search one of these from the ride line as well, so I think 3 makes more sense there. You could also discard this as well if you wanted to for the ride deck, since you kind of want to hold on to your main deck pieces more so. And knowing that you can get a use from this from the drop zone kind of makes sense there as well. So kind of sick, but what does the order actually do, besides the functionality of it? So it basically gives your Vermilion Vanguard 2 red tech skills. The first one is that when your Vermilion kills rear guards, instead of them getting retired, they get bound instead, which is nice, and actually matters a lot when it comes to another card in the deck called Rising Phoenix, but again, we'll get to that when we get to the grade 1s. But then he also gets the second red test skill, which is if your opponent has no rear guards, all of your front row gets an additional 5k. So this is pretty sick though, because obviously we can choose the rear guards that we want to attack with Vermilion, so we can just do a clear sweep by getting rid of their back row or front row in a combination, by utilizing that with the spot removal that we have in the deck. But yeah, it's a pretty cool, interesting way to have some, spot removal, but then also get a reward from it in terms of the 5k. So, well, 10k in total, I suppose, because 2 of those rear guards get 5k, so an accumulation of 10,000 power altogether, which is pretty cool. And yeah, pretty sick order card, I have to say. But I also play 1 more grade 3. It's just a Dinosaur grade 3, and it comes in handy pretty much, pretty well in this deck, because at the end of the battle that attacks, you can put it into the soul, choose one of your rear guards and give it 5k. Doesn't sound like a lot, but actually, one of the issues I have with this deck, in terms of the way that Rising Phoenix works, is that it calls itself to any rear guard circle. So you can actually get a lot of attack extensions by poking with the rear guards, and then when Vermillion is attacking, obviously it binds rearguards that it kills, which actually triggers your Phoenix, because this basically resurrects itself when something gets bound by Soul Blasting a card. So you can see here the intention for the dinosaur now is the fact that we generate a soul from this, and we also get to move it away from the circle, so we don't end up negging too much, and also getting some value so that we can make room for the Phoenix. So that's kind of the intention to play this, is to basically fuel our soul, get some extra power from it, I guess, as well, to benefit, and just not minus ourselves too much overall. So I felt like 2 copies of it was fine. I don't know how long this card's going to stay in the deck, but I thought it was a nice tech choice to include in the deck, so I'm playing 2 copies of it. Then going into the grade 2s here, we of course have the 3 copies of Thunderstorm Dragoon. So with this, it's pretty simple. On place, it gets 5k, and we can Soul Charge 1. So yeah, Soul Charge is good, especially for this deck. And the next unit will tell you why, which is 4 copies of Dragonic Death Scythe. Yeah, very cool artwork for this guy, have to say. They've done well with this one. But pretty simple. So during your turn, if your opponent has no front row rear guards, so this one's just front row. It doesn't matter about the back row, so bear that in mind. It's different to the order. It gets 5k, so it's a 15k beat stick, which is very handy. You know, an 8k booster makes that 23. Persona right turns 33, looking good. And then when it attacks the Vanguard, if you have a Grade 3 or greater Narukami Van, you can Soul Blast 2, choose your opponent's rearguards, bind it, and if you didn't bind, you draw a card. So even if you go against a deck where they don't have rearguards left, you can at least get some value from the Death Scythe, which is nice. I think they've learned their lesson with that, with how spot removal was before. Gives some sort of value to us if we can't retire stuff, right? So that's pretty nice. So that is Death Scythe, so pretty nice Narukami return there. And then, of course, the final grade 2 for this deck is going to be 3 copies of the generic grade 2, which is Latifa. So this is actually pretty nice. It synergizes very well in the deck, in that basically when you use the normal order, of course, the first skill, it's basically the top 5 check. It allows us to either add a normal order or call something to the board, so it allows us to search for pieces. It is a Soul Blast, but we don't mind too much, especially if we're getting a plus out of it and we're looking for specific pieces in our deck. We actually don't mind. But the second skill synergizes super well in this deck. Basically, it gets an extra 5k when it attacks, depending on the number of open circles in the same column as this. So if there's 1, it gets 5k, and then the entire column's empty in front of it, it gets 10k. So pretty sick in terms of the way that the Vermillion plays, of course, because you could just clear that column, and then this gets an extra 10k power, which is sick. And of course, the order card, if you're able to combine that by clearing their field with maybe Death Scythe or spot removal, you're looking at an extra power gain there. So yeah, so this is what I mean, is that although the power allocations don't sound huge, when they accumulate together, you're actually hitting for some pretty big numbers. So the rear guards can just smack face just out of nowhere, which is great. Decided I want to go for 3 copies of this though, because like I said, the soul in this deck can be a bit fragile at times, so I felt like 4 was a bit excessive, and also by taking that 1 copy out, I could then make room for some other tech choices I want to play in the grade 1s, which I'll get to in a bit. So yeah, that is it for the grade 2s. So for the grade 1s, of course, we have the KFC special himself, the Rising Phoenix. So yeah, this is basically a great way for us to enable multi-attack by binding something, and then we can call this out to our rearguard circles to get extra attacks. That's why I'm playing the dinosaur card, because you can at least open a circle for it to come to, so we don't neg too much. It also comes at a Soul Blast, so you got to be careful of that. But I also do like the fact that Phoenix has a way to get itself into the drop zone just by itself, by retiring itself to give something 5. Now notice it's any unit you can give 5k to, so you could give that 5k to Vermillion, along with the 5k that it can give itself to make it 23, which is a pretty good number. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, of course we want to play 4 copies of this, because again, we can just bring Phoenix back from the drop and get some value there. And yeah, the multi-attack is very sick. Also in this deck, it's pretty important for this card to get the extra power, because when we're Persona riding and we bring this guy back out, it's only going to be at 18, but if we clear the board for the order card, we can make it 23, which is a better magic number. And we also have some other cards in the deck to help this card just perform a bit better as well in terms of power. So the next card I'm playing is 2 extra copies of the Red River Dragoon. The reason for this is because I like the fact that a Soul Charge is 2. If it was just a Soul Charge 1, probably wouldn't play it, not gonna lie. Well, I don't know, maybe. It's a Narukami card after all, so we can't add it. But yeah, CB1, bind something in the back row, and then if we don't bind anything, we Soul Charge 2. Soul Charge 2 is very damn helpful for the deck, as you can see. But the amount of soul blasting going on, that kind of a resource is just really nice. However, it is a counterblast, so you also need to be careful with that, because this deck doesn't really countercharge that much. I have noticed some deck lists where they play Dragon Monk Gojo, which is kind of funny, from the old like Dragonic Overlord encounter stuff, because it synergizes pretty well, funnily enough, with Vermillion, because if Vermillion's attacking 3 things, it's most likely going to hit something, right? Which means Gojo can retire itself and then you countercharge. It's nice, but it's a Kagero, not a Narukami. It's also a -1 for a counter charge, and this deck already struggles in terms of card advantage. I don't know. It depends. It's something that we could play, but I'm just not a fan of it. And also, let's be fair, the only things in this deck that's counterblasting is this and Vermillion. So, you know, I don't think we have to worry too much on the counterblast department anyway. So I'm quite happy just sticking with what we've got. However, one more grade 1 that I wanted to put in this deck, which is pretty cool, is 2 copies of Static Crack Dragon. So with this, basically when your other unit is placed in the Vanguard circle in the same column as this unit, it gets an extra 5k, the placed unit, which means we can get 2 allocations of power from this. We could just call something normally, get 5k on it, then you swing with it. And then we could call Phoenix to that column so that Phoenix gets an extra 5k. So if we're not getting the 5k from the order to make it 23, we can at least get it from this, and that's pretty cool. Because getting Phoenix over defensive is pretty important, not gonna lie. So yeah. And also you could potentially hold on to this for the boost element as well, to make it so that it gets to like over the 33k threshold. You do have to meet some requirements for that, but it is something else to take in the mind there. But I think it's a pretty nice one of. So well, pretty nice 2 of. Sorry, it's been a long day. But yeah, I think it's a nice tech choice alongside the Dinosaur Grade 3. So wanted to play 2 copies of the Static Crack Dragon, and then the final Grade 1, of course, is the Elementaria and the 3 regular PG. Nice that the twin booklet's got this lightning/thunder going on here, so it's fitting the theme rather well, I say. So that is it for the grade 1s. So moving on over to the triggers, we of course have our over trigger with Dragon Empire. Pretty good, gives us an extra attack with the Vanguard, an extra twin drive. Pretty hard to beat that. Festival Collection ones are good as well, so if you want to play those, that's also fine. I'm just sticking with the Dragon Empire one, since it's just good. It is good. Then we have 4 copies of the skill crit. I haven't used the skill that much yet. But it's extra soul generation, which I can't complain about, and yeah, it's merely there for the crit, let's be honest. And I'm also playing 4 more crit, because I think 8 crit's the best way to go with this deck. The deck really struggles grinding in the late game, because it starts to run out of resources and just overall swinging potential. So yeah, I feel like you want to go aggro, crit as much as we can, get them to a lethal threshold, and just try and go for game. So yeah. However, we do play 3 draw, because like I said, this deck doesn't really gain a ton of advantage outside of like Vermillion killing multiple rearguards if it can, and then the Latifa and the Dragonic Death Scythe kind of sometimes. But yeah, besides that though, we don't plus a whole lot. So there have been moments where I've thought about putting the 4th draw trigger in, but I'm quite happy sticking with the 8 crit for the time being. So 3 draw it is. And then the final trigger of the deck is, of course, our 4 heal. Decided to pick up this cool dragon one from the Festival Collection, so that's pretty cool. Very thematic with the Vermillion, so that is it for the triggers. And that's it for the deck. But yeah, hopefully I went over this deck correctly and well enough, because, oh god, I'm not going to lie to you guys, I've recorded this video like 3 times now, and I want to make sure it's good. I don't want to redo it again, but hopefully I went over everything well enough and explained my card choices. But yeah, like I said, Vermillion, very fun deck, surprised me a lot. And yeah, check out the deck log in the description if you want to just see an overview of the deck. Try it out if you haven't already, if you can get it for a good value. And yeah, hopefully we see the blood in the future as well, as long as Pantlet Ezel is with it as well, for Ezel, because I've got to have that. But yeah, that is it for the deck. Hope you guys enjoyed, and yeah, I'm hoping to have Grandfear on the channel at some point because I do have that deck, and I want to wait for the set 12 support to come out, and hopefully, the Granthea promo comes out as well because we already got a grade 1 promo for that deck before, but there's a grade 2 Dragon promo for Granthea now, and it looks really cool and it's a really sick skill, and I want that card. So hopefully it's a box topper. Hopefully it's easy to get, but we'll see. Either way, like I said, hope you guys enjoyed the deck profile, like always, and this is Guardian 205 signing out.